Sotah Daf begins with the Gemara's discussion as to how Kriyas Yamsuf went and how the moment in which the sea split began. And then the Gemara will return to the topic of Har Grizim and Har Evel and begin analyzing and discussing how many mitzvahs, kolos, and arurim were there and how it compares to two other events where we had similar lists. So the Gemara begins by where the last two lines on Daf Lamed Vav, the Gemara quotes a brisa. The brisa says, Machlokes Tanaim, were the Shvatim arguing over who should go into the Yam first, or are they arguing over each one not wanting to go into the Yam first? So Rabbi Meir's opinion is that everybody wanted to go first. Everyone said, I want to go first, until Binyamin jumped and went into the sea first without finishing the discussion, and that's why the pasuk says, Sham Binyamin Sa'ir Roidaim, and Roidaim is meant to be read as Red Yam. So Binyamin the youngest went and he went into the sea. And then it says, Sorry Yehuda Ragmasam. Sorry Zvulun, sorry Naphtali. And then Yehuda and Zvulun were upset, so they were throwing things at them. Now, therefore, and that's chus of the fact that he was Mekadeshim Shemayim by jumping into the sea first, Binyamin got the opportunity to host, as it were, the Shechina, because the Kodesh HaKadoshim is in his chelik of Eretz Yisrael. And so it says, Abein Kseifa of Shechina will rest between his shoulders. That's Rabbi Meir's opinion. Rabbi Huda says it was the opposite. They weren't each wanting to go first, they were each wanting to not go first. Each one said, I'm not going first, and they all said, I'm not going first, until Nachshon ben Aminadav went, and he jumped, and he went to the sea first before anything else, and that's why it says, Sivavuni b'chachash Ephraim, I'm surrounded by Ephraim's deceit, uvemirma beis Yisrael, and the lying of Yisrael, Yehuda oid reid am, which Rashi explains means that he went in, he was raid because of the bitachon that he had in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now this it also says in the Navi, in the Ksuvim, that is, Pasuk in Tehillim, Hashem Elokim ki ba'umayim ad nafesh, save me Hashem because the water has come up to my soul, meaning up to the nostrils, Tavati ve'ein mitzula ve'ein ma'amad, I'm sinking, I'm drowning in the mud, and there is no one to save me. Al tishtefeni shibaylos mayim v'al tevle'eni mitzula, let me not be swamped by the water and drown in the depths to be swallowed up by it. So that is that discussion, and this we came into because we were discussing how Yehuda was Mekadeshim Shemayim. That would be according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, was Nachshon who went first, and therefore he made a Kiddush Hashem and he got Zuchosim. So the Gemara continues with the narrative of what happened at Kriyas Yamsuf. So the Gemara says at that moment Moshe Rabbeinu was being marach b'tefillah. He was praying a long prayer, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, my beloved are drowning in the sea, and you're busy praying before me? It's not what you're supposed to do. So Moshe Rabbeinu said, well, what should I do? He said, speak to Klal Yisrael and they should travel, and you lift up your staff and hold it over the sea. And because of this entire incident, the Gemara says Yehuda was Zeicha and he became the king of Klal Yisrael. Like it says, Yehuda became the Holy One and the ruler. Why? Because of the rest of the pasuk. Because Hayam Ra'av Ayanais, because the sea was chased away. Okay. Now, the Gemara returns to the topic of Har Grizim and Har Evel. The Gemara wants to know, where was Levi? Levi is listed as being on one of the mountains, and Levi is also listed as being in the valley between the mountains. So where was he? The Gemara will quote a few opinions. So Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says you can't say that he was between the mountains at the bottom, because it says that he was on top, and you can't say he was on top because he was on the bottom. So how do you work this out? So he says the elders of the Kohanim and the Leviim were below, they were beneath, and the rest of the Shevet was above, on the mountaintop. Rabbi Shaya says, anyone who was befitting of the age of service, Leviim who were old enough to serve, that's between the ages of 30 and 50, they were below in the mountain, in the valley, and the rest were on top. Rabbi says they were both below. There was no Leviim on top of any of the mountains. The Gemara will explain shortly how that fits with the pasuk. Clearly says that they were, but he says that they were below, they were in the valley, and they turned their face towards Har Grizim and said the bracha, and they turned their face towards Har Evel and said the kola. So what does it mean when it says al? When it says they were on the mountain? Ela yamdu levarchas Yisrael al Har Grizim. Ba'avrachim is yardin Shimon v'Levi. It says Levi clearly as being on al Har Grizim. So Rabbi says the word al does not mean on. The word al means near. And we find in other places where Rabbi says that the word al means near. There's a brayso that says, "V'nasata al hamarachas levay nezaka." you should put pure levona spice on the maracha, on the fire in the mizbeach. So Rebbe says it also means near it. You don't put it on top of it and not in it. How do you know? What's the source over there? So the source is from the Parechas. It says that the Parechas, which is a curtain that divided the Kodesh from the Kodesh HaKadoshim, is V'sakais al ha'aron. It should cover on the aron. And it wasn't on the aron. It was a vertical curtain that was hanging near the aron. So there you clearly see that the word al means near. The Gemara now moves on to discuss the actual brachos and the kolos themselves. The Gemara quotes a brisa that says that there was a multiplicity of brisos here. So the word bris here is used as a general term for a bracha and a kola, a description of effects that will occur if we do or do not do something. And the Gemara is going to say there was up to 48 for each mitzvah that we have. And the Gemara is going to show us how. So first of all, each bracha was two. It was said to the general and to the specific. It was Ashaloi Yakum Mizravatera Zois, general, and then it was said specifically. It was said in detail and in particular. Now, each one was also said as a blessing and a curse. Blessed is one who will do this, curse is one who will not do this. So you have two variables. So you have four for each mitzvah in that sense. You have Baruch specific, Baruch general, in reverse order, Baruch general, Baruch specific, and then you have Ar general, Ar specific. Now, that's four already. Now, that gets multiplied again by two, because that gets multiplied by four, that is, because each bracha has four inyanim. It has Lilmoid Ulalamed, Lishma Velasais, to learn, to teach, to be very careful with, and to do them. So each of these four was relevant to the four of the Baruch, the Klal, the Prat, and the Klal. Therefore, you have 4 times 4, so you have a total of 16 for each of these. And now this first opinion in the Brisa says, and the same was true when the mitzvahs were listed on Har Sinai, and they were listed in Arvas Moav, when Moshe Rabbeinu repeated Kol Torah Kula and Chumash Devarim. So you have 3 times that each one was listed, so 3 times 16, for a total of 48 brises on each mitzvah. So that's why it says, Eila Divrei Brisa Shortziv Hashem Es Moshe. That's when it was in Har Sinai, and it says V'shmartem Mitzvah Bris Hazais. So it comes out, you have 48 for each of them. Now, Reb Shimon says no, Har Gerizim and Har Evol didn't count. Instead, you have the Oyel Moed, which is to say, he holds that you did not have the specifics of the mitzvahs mentioned on Har Gerizim and Har Evol. Instead, there was explained at length in the Oyel Moed after Har Sinai. HaKadosh Baruch Hu taught them to Moshe Rabbeinu, and therefore those are the 3 things that you have, not Har Gerizim and Har Evol. Instead, you have Har Sinai, Oyel Moed, and Arvas Moav. Says the Gemara, this machlokes parallels what we find in another brisa. Brisa says pretty much this exact machlokes. Rabbi Shmuel says the general was said on Sinai, and the specifics were said in the Oyel Moed. That's how the Torah was taught to Moshe Rabbeinu. Rabbi Kiva says, no, the general and the specifics of all the mitzvahs were said in Har Sinai, and they were repeated in the Oyel Moed, and then they were repeated a 3rd time in Arvas Moav, which is like the first opinion that we saw before. Now it continues, and it says that therefore you have every single mitzvah that's written in the Torah has 48 brisos upon it. Now Shimon ben Yehuda Ish Kfar Akko expands on this a little bit more. He says the name of Reb Shimon, every mitzvah has 48 brisos on it, times 603,550. That's the number of Jews that there were standing at Har Sinai, at least of the counted ones between the ages of 20 and 60 men. So each one of those is another mitzvah times each one. Now Rebbe said, according to Rabbi Shimon Yehuda Ish Kfar Akko in the name of Rabbi Shimon, every single mitzvah has on it 48 brisos times 603,550, and therefore every single Jew has 603,550 mitzvahs times that amount. So what's he adding? What's the difference between this? So the Gemara says we're discussing arvos. Each Jew has only the 613 mitzvahs times the 48 brisos. However, if you multiply that by every single Jew that exists, you're holding that you have a mitzvah to make sure that he keeps his mitzvah. And therefore, every single person that exists is another mitzvah, is another full set of all the mitzvahs and all the brisos for you. Now, Rebbe goes a step further and he says, not only do you have that mitzvah, but you also have the mitzvah to make sure that every single person keeps the mitzvah of arvos. So not only do you have to make sure, not only do you have a mitzvah of arvus to make sure that everyone in Klal Yisrael keeps all the mitzvahs, you also have a mitzvah to make sure that everyone keeps their arvus, which is a whole nother layer of mitzvah on each one. The Gemara now continues with the drasha that was said by Rabbi Yehuda ben Nachmani, who was the Meturgaman, who was the one who would repeat over the shir out loud of Reish Lakish. He said the entire parsha of the Klalos of Hargizim Har Evel was only referring to Znus, referring to a Noyef and a Noyafis. Where do you see that? So, for example, he says, it says, Cursed is the one who is going to make a statue, and the meaning that he's going to serve it. So how could you say that he's cursed? He's much more than cursed. Somebody's avodah zarah is chayav a lot more things than curse. So that's not what it's referring to. It's referring to somebody who had znos together with an akum, and therefore the child that was born went and was oved avodah zarah. So he caused avodah zarah in the world by having this child, and therefore he's So it's referring to znos, and therefore everything else is also referring to znos. Now the Gemara brings another brisa on the topic of Hargizim and Har Evel. So it says, two psukim, it says, when it's atas a brach al Hargizim, it's a klal al Har Evel. That's a repetition. It already said before, Eli Yamdu Levarches Ha'am al Hargizim, Ein Lu Yamdu al HaKlala B'Har Evel. So why is it repeated? What is this saying here? So it's adding that the brachos come before the klalos. Now you may think that it should be all the brachos and then all the klalos. Therefore it says bracha uklala. You say one bracha and then that klala, and then you go to the next bracha. Now it also makes a hekesh between the brachas and the klalos to show that there are 5 things which you have by the brachas which you have to have by the klalos as well, and the same thing are in the reverse. And these 5 things are, it has to be said by the Levim, has to be said out loud, has to be said in Lashon Kodesh, has to be said with prat and kal, general and specific, and everyone has to answer amen to